Welcome back to AV Veterans Talk. We're continuing our conversation with this week's guest, Jodi Champagne. And so we're back here with Jodi, and you're making your way around over there, and then one of the things that during our break here we were talking about over there, unlike in America where you go out with metal detectors and people going all over the landscape. I know of many stories of the English Channel, which is considered a war grave, and you're not really allowed, I don't believe, to go out there and really dive because during the war there were so many lives lost there and so much, sinkings and plane crashes out there. But in Europe, it's kind of the same thing. Once you get on shore, that mindset doesn't really change because they hold these battlefields very in reverence, correct? Mm-hmm. And so, when you have artifacts like this, that come from the battlefields of World War I and World War II, you end up with this stuff. But there's a process to all this because you're not allowed to really go out and do a lot of this, right? So Why don't you explain to everybody that if you're going over and you're visiting these battlefields, what's the etiquette? What do they, what do they not want you to, share something about that?
Well, actually, you would think my first thought process was my first trip was, wow, if I had a metal detector and go out here and I could start searching and stuff. And I was told that you can't do that. That was not allowed, and that only farmers and stuff could actually not even dig. They wouldn't dig for it, but they would be digging their land and come across the artifacts. Mm-hmm. And but the other way that you could get them is actually if you were walking and it's there. Mm-hmm. You can't dig for it, but if you see it physically, then you could pick it up and take it. But matter of fact, last year I had found a small little piece of cannon on Mount Kimmel, where the Battle of Mount Kimmel had took place during World War I. And I was so excited that I found an actual piece, and then later after I came back and stuff like that, I actually found out that off to the side of where I found that in the grass, the high grass that's untouched, mm-hmm. was a couple warheads like this, mm-hmm. and some other items off to the side, just laying there, not even having to be dug up.
Wow.
And that. So I'm like, oh man, see, I would have seen that.
And I would have taken that. Yeah, absolutely.
Although they probably wouldn't allow me to pick it up because, not knowing if it was live or not. And
absolutely.
because I find a lot of live ammo and gas bombs that haven't gone off, the mustard gas and all that too as well. And it's just amazing.
I know just in the last couple of days over in Germany, they found a 500-pound unexploded bomb in a neighborhood somewhere. Yep. And it was funny because you were reading reports because they wanted to evacuate the neighborhoods to take this 500-pound bomb out of there, and the people were not leaving because they said, like, oh, we don't care. We'd rather stay here, go do what you want to do. But you're right. So this piece here, which is the timer off the top of is it World War I or World War II?
World War I.
This is a World War I timer of bomb, and this was given to you
by Marino, a friend of mine. Yes.
Like that. And then you bring this back to the States. Did this come back in your luggage?
Yes. But before it came back, he made sure that it was not live and it was cleaned up, no residue. I'll, make sure that it was safe. Because they do want me to come back.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm thinking, did you have some kind of information you can take back on a plane, when you're going through an airport and stuff to explain this stuff to anybody? Or
no, actually, I made sure I read all the rules and stuff. And
it worked.
It worked.
It worked.
So it's in my luggage and that. So and they have scanners, so it's all right there and stuff. So
and you have pieces of fragment bomb here,
yes.
Things like this. This is all World War I stuff here, correct?
Yes.
And then so this was collected off of a specific battlefield.
Yes, that was actually, to be honest with you, I can't pronounce it, but that piece of barbed wire was in the trenches of one of the battles that I actually have some amazing images from as well. So but they're kind of all scattered around, and we had visited several battlefields
Yeah.
on that. So actually, if you look at them, you would not even believe that it was a battlefield because they're beautiful farmlands,
Yeah.
beautiful forests. Homes are there. When the homes are hit and they're crumbled or whatever because they're all stone,
Mhm.
they actually take the crumbled stones and rebuild with those stones as well.
Yeah.
And that it's absolutely amazing. But you would never know that this was a battleground and so many thousands and tens of thousands of men were killed, or even women at some points
Yeah.
were killed.
Yeah.
And it's humbling.
Yeah, it is. And then you learn the lesson of like World War One, to where shrapnel. You have 3 pieces of shrapnel here, which are the little ball that would blow out,
Right.
and then of course later on stuff shrapnel like this. It's funny as you. Funny stuff I'm not talking about, but it's interesting to when I used to take this into the classrooms for children, young people. So I'm really messing this up. It's stuff that sound like more of a terror guy. They would go into a classroom and scare people off. But you know what? It was the legacy of the American soldier and being willing to face this type of stuff in combat to liberate people. To fight for freedom and things like that, because I'd always say to high school students and stuff, I go, this stuff is the worst aspects of war. I go, this type of these things here and stuff do terrible things to human flesh.
Exactly.
And I go, but there are men and women that were willing to stand in the way of this type of stuff on your behalf. And then it would make it live to them, to where all of a sudden I was like, you know what, yeah, that's all of a sudden it makes it real.
Yes.
It's not a Hollywood, prop master decorating somebody up to look like they're wounded. When you see a World War II or a veteran in a classroom, and then you hold something up like this and say, like, this man was willing to stand in front of this stuff on your behalf,
Right.
then it really sinks into these young people, like, our veterans are not some scary thing. These are incredible. These are the supermen,
Right.
the
Right.
superwomen and stuff, of our society.
Well, it's amazing that in our travels this trip, we had actually gone to several cemeteries, and one of the cemeteries, although I'm learning Dutch, speaking it and pronouncing the proper words is not my good side, shall we say. But one of the largest cemeteries that I've seen in battles in that area, Saint Michael or something along that line. I'm so sorry that I'm not pronouncing it right, but excuse me. That the gentleman that runs that cemetery, he gave us a lot of information, and he actually asked if we wanted to see some items, and of course we said yes. And he came out from the basement and brought up these shrapnel pieces and said that this is what our men stood up against and fought for Belgium and that, and just to see what they died from. And it was very humbling to see that massive size, and this is what our men's lives were taken from.
Yeah, it's humbling, and nobody wants peace more than a soldier, because the soldier has to face this, and that's just the most horrific. And World War I obviously was, say, the war to end all wars, as they say. But we'll take another break here, and we'll come back, and we'll talk a little bit about that legacy and your project.
Right.
To bring that to the forefront.
And what they say to end that is, freedom is not free.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll be right back here with Jodi.
I'm Bob Alvis, and thanks for joining us for this segment of AV Veterans Talk.